And even though I told my mother to keep me updated on my dad, I found out through family that he was leaving this earth, that he was transitioning, going home to glory, and my mother told me nothing. So after I got trespassed from her home in 2020, I blocked her from 2020 to 2024. It was the longest I had blocked my mother because I was done. And then I ran into the pastor and first lady of my home church from when I was a kid. They told me that the last time they saw my mother, she did not look well. Regardless of everything that she put me through and my family through and my friends through, I knew that that was still my mother and I'm still her only child, and that I would have to take care of her if and when the time came. And this is something that I discussed with Huey too. So we were on the same page as far as me being a caregiver for her and what that would entail. And I unblocked her and I did make her aware that I already knew she was not doing well, and I just asked her like, "Hey, you need to tell me what's going on, because if anything should happen to you, I will not know what to tell doctors, what medicines you're on, or anything. I will know nothing." She told me, and I think me blocking her did some good because she stopped harassing me. She was mindful of how she was talking to me, mindful of what she was saying. Anything that she had done in the past, she had stopped. She rarely contacted me up until 2026. I don't even think we met up for lunch or anything. If I can remember correctly, I did tell her, "Hey, when it comes to my dad, please let me know if he's okay, if he's in the hospital, or if anything should happen, because I still would like to see him." I was like, "I know you still have that trespass on me, but if anything should happen, if he goes to the hospital or anything, let me know." And she did it. The day that I found out that my dad was transitioning, my cousin called me, and they called me and told me that my mother had messaged them and told them to get to the hospital immediately. Her dad is transitioning. I knew this day would come. I told my therapist and husband for years that I would never know when he transitioned. I even went so far as to say that I would never know when the funeral is. But thankfully, my cousin called me, told me, let me know that my mother had cut up so bad Saturday, the day before, that the hospital told her to leave. They had to remove her from the hospital. And they only let her back in Sunday because he was transitioning. My cousin asked me if I was going to go up there, and I told him no. I told him, if it doesn't come from my mother, and you're telling me that she was just put out of this establishment because of how she behaved, I don't want her cutting up on me being the last thing he sees or hears. My cousin understood, and a few hours go by and my cousin called me to let me know that my dad had transitioned, and he had made it like probably 2 seconds after. He told me that my mother was on the phone with a former politician during the whole time, and that doctors were trying to talk to my mother, but she was ignoring them. They were trying to, do protocol that doctors do. And probably an hour and a half later, my mother texted me and said, "Hey, call me ASAP," dropping all types of emojis. It's important. And I call her and she tells me that dad passed away, and that they were coming to get the body. And I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." Now, keep in mind, I know everything. But I was like, "Whoa, what? Coming to get the body?" Like, and I'm like, "What happened?" And I'm asking her questions and I'm like, "What happened?" And I was like, "Well, I can come up there." And she didn't answer what happened. She just said, "Oh, he was doing well and we thought he was gonna be able to be discharged, but he wasn't discharged, and he's gone." And she was like, "I can tell them to hold off when they get here so that you can get here." I drove 13 minutes to the hospital, and after I've parked my car and I'm about to walk into the hospital, I ask her what floor, what room, and I hear her getting off an elevator and she's like, "Oh, they already got the body." And I'm asking her questions. What happened? How long has he been here? What's going on? Why didn't I know? She answers none of these questions. And she says somebody's name. And then she says, I've got to go. I'll call you back later, and starts crying and hangs up. So I walk through the entrance of the hospital and I see her back to me in a chair in a waiting area. And she's being consoled by two women and a nurse. So she had told me the room and the floor. I go up there, it's the wrong floor, wrong room. I take 10 minutes to get to the right area because I wanted to talk to the doctors and just kind of understand what happened regarding my mom and his care. And it was shift change. They had already left for the day. And at this point, I'm livid because I'm like, you did this on purpose. My mom used to work in this hospital for like several years. I know that she knows when shift change happens, and you can't tell me that wasn't done intentionally. Come back down, and everything is calm. The two women that she's sitting with, I know one of the women personally from years ago, and I haven't seen her in years. So at first, I don't remember her, but later on, I do. And then here's the former politician sitting here too. I asked my mom to step aside so we can have a private conversation. I let her lie to me for 21 minutes, and most of my questions did not get answered until I kept asking them repeatedly. And eventually I asked, hey, why was I the last to know? She was like, oh, you weren't the last to know. And then she goes on this whole rant and says how the doctors at this hospital KILLED'd him, and how they gave him morphine. And I had to stop her. And I was like, no, they do that because his life is ending and they just want to make it less painful. And she like cut me off. And so I ask another question. I'm like, well, who all came up here? And she lists the people that came up here. And I'm like, well, who contacted them? And she says, I don't know. And I tell her it doesn't make any sense. And the more questions I ask her, the more irate she gets. And it gets to a point where I tell her, look, I'm not dumb. I'm not stupid. I know exactly what's going on. He transitioned and you weren't ready. Everybody else got to see him but me. I said, I'm sorry for your loss. And I walked away. And she tried to make it right by calling the funeral home and asking them to turn back around and open the doors of the funeral home so I could see him. And I did. I sat with him for 30 minutes and then I went home. And I told her I wanted to be a part of all the arrangements because I wasn't even a part of him transitioning. And I told her that I had no clue how any of this works because I've never had to do it, and that I need to be there because if anything should happen to her, God forbid, I don't need to be looking crazy and naive and dumb when it's my turn to take care of her and handle her own arrangements. So I think me telling her that made her realize I do need to be there. And boy, was I not prepared for what would come that week.